The Leafs just pulled off a heist on the Philadelphia Flyers as they acquire Scott Laughton for really a great return, a protected first round pick and Nikita Grebenkin, but not to mention it's 50% retained, a fourth and a sixth coming back. Craig Berube is going to be able to play with the lineups. The Leafs add some much needed center depth, a physical player who can score 15, 20 goals every season, a great guy by all accounts. Honestly, this is an unbelievable move by the Toronto Maple Leafs at this trade deadline. We got to break down the official trade and the implications on the Leafs, not only this season, but next season as well, coming up on this episode of Hat Trick HQ. And honestly, let's just dive right into it. We're not going to waste time. The trade is official. The Toronto Maple Leafs are sending a first-round pick in 2027, which is top 10 protected as of the recording of this video. That's the new information. And Nikita Grebenkin to Philadelphia for Scott Laughton, 50% retained, a fourth and a sixth. So the Leafs get a guy that they can slot in immediately in a bottom six center role, who is having a solid season, really beloved by Philadelphia Flyers fans, was wearing the A on his chest. They get a fourth and a sixth, at him 50% retained. Mark, he's having a solid season this year, 27 points in 60 games, on pace for, about 35 or 40, but there's more to it than that. To get a guy you can play solidly in your bottom six, retained now, so it's only $1.5 million this year and next year, to me, that's a borderline heist right now. This is a great move.
And the biggest thing is, like you said, right now from this picture, it does say 3 million, but it is 1.5 for the next 2 years, this year and next season, which is going to help with the Leafs so much going in and figuring out their cap in the offseason. But to look at Scott Laughton himself, listen, he might not look like the most flashiest player on paper, 11 goals, 16 assists, but Scott Laughton hasn't been on the biggest offensive producing team. He's joining the Toronto Maple Leafs, where he finally gets to showcase that he's a big forward, he can lay hits, he's a net front presence, penalty killer, third line center, everything you want in a playoff guy is Scott Laughton. I mean, looking at his stats, he's a guy that can go and score 10 plus goals each season. As I said, not the flashiest player until you see him on the ice. One of my friends actually is a Flyers fan, and Scott Laughton was his favorite player, to the point that he was upset that this trade happened. I mean, Josh, looking at this, listen, the Leafs needed to get bigger. They wanted to be more physical. They picked up Ryan Reeves a few seasons ago, and obviously that didn't work out. And I'm saying that Ryan Reeves is not as good as Laughton, but is this almost the perfect piece the Leafs truly needed to add to make that push in the playoffs, to have the bigger body, someone that can match against heavy teams and also cause a disturbance in front of the net?
I mean, like, it's a good piece. It's one of those pieces every team is going to want to go for. Now, is he going to solve all the Maple Leafs problems? No, and I don't think anyone's going to claim that he is. But at the very least, now it adds a lot of depth to this Leafs lineup. Now, all your four centers, they play a role very well, right? You assume you'll probably move Domi somewhere else. That'd be my guess. You run Matthews, Tavares, Laughton, and Kampf. Kampf is a great penalty killer defensive player in his own right. So you really have a lot of great players that can play that playoff style hockey now with Scott Laughton. And again, he's not nothing. I mean, his career high in goals is 18, but you can expect him to pot a couple come playoff time. He'll pot a few now before the end of the season. So, like, yes, the price at this trade deadline is very high. And the Leafs could just barely afford this now with Ryan Reeves. If he gets claimed, fine. If he doesn't get claimed, you bury, I think it's 1.15 or something of his contract in the minors, which frees up enough cap to do this. But Mark, to have a guy that you can rely on in your bottom six, a physical, like you said, net front guy, penalty killer, just one of those playoff style grinder guys, at 1.5 million this year and next year with the cap increasing. I know this is a seller's market and a first seems like a lot. It is top 10 protected, so we'll see how the Flyers do, but they look to be getting better year after year. Well, it is what it is in that front. But the Leafs right now, when you get a guy like that for 1.5 mil, honestly, just the fact that you can have a guy that you can rely on controlled for this year and next, to me, that's absolutely worth that first, honestly. And even if it does convey, which it probably will, I'm totally cool with it.
And the biggest thing is looking at stats. Someone that's flirting with 50% on the faceoff draw, 129 hits this year. Scott Laughton, I cannot stop stressing enough, is a playoff style hockey player. Looking at the lineup, as you said, Max Domi is going to have to move, and they're going to have to get quite creative. But in my opinion, it's going to be Bob McMahon moving up, maybe Domi to the left wing, to play with Laughton and Robertson. It's going to get quite tricky, though, looking at the lineup. And listen, tricky in a good way, as you do have guys not even in the lineup. Max Pacioretty's not there. Tanev, Reeves will be placed on waivers and probably claims. Dewar's there. This is a team that has one of the deepest Toronto Maple Leafs roster in quite some time. And listen, they can still make moves. The deadline's not over, but the impact of Laughton on this is going to be insane, as you can see from the JFresh charts, as well. Just talking about third line net crashing center who plays with an edge, crashes the nets, retrieves this and steals pucks. This is what Craig Berube wants in his third line center, and not only is he good on the ice, but from a reporter from Philly going in and going as far as saying is an incredible human being, leader, and a community figure. He was by far one of the most underappreciated athletes in Philly during a very bad stretch for the Flyers. Toronto is getting a hell of a person, wishing him the best as well. Everything added together, this feels like a heist, Josh. Someone that can fill the lineup up and also fill the locker room out with his positivity, helping this team in every way. I don't know, I can't really get over the fact on this trade. Listen, Grebenkin was awesome. Forecheck, backcheck, paycheck. Everyone loved it. He's friends with Michkov. It does suck to see him go, but Josh, like, I feel like the Leafs really got a huge steal in this.
Yeah, like and a fourth and a sixth to boot. Like it's kind of crazy, especially considering the prices some other players were going for. Like what I was kind of saying is like if Beauvillier goes for a second, Scott Laughton's worth a first, but you get more than that. Like yeah, I know you give up Grebenkin, who's having a solid year in the KHL, could be really really good in a couple of years. Who knows? But what you do know is that the Leafs are very much in win now mode this year more than ever. I mean, again, the free agency situation is maybe a sensitive subject for some Leafs fans because it's going to get tough. Like contracts are going to have to be given out right now. But you know, this year, this is your roster. This might be your last chance to go out and do something big. So adding a guy like Laughton adds a ton of depth to this lineup. But Mark, the final thing is this outlook going forward. We're talking into next year again, and we still have Tanev who's still in the IR. He's going to have to come back in this lineup, and he's paid now for another 5 years after this. You're going to have Marner who is due for a contract. He's a UFA. Is he going to leave? Right. Tavares, you need to pay. There's a lot of other question marks with this lineup. Scott Laughton seems like the kind of guy that's very easy to keep around, or at the very least, you can move him for another decent return if you absolutely have to, like, you know, the offseason or something. I don't see that happening, but are you concerned at all with the Leafs cap situation going forward, considering the amount of players that they're paying a lot of money and the couple of contracts that they have to sign this offseason?
I mean, the biggest thing is, listen, you are going to have to worry about Mitch Marner walking. Tavares seems to want to come back in the team-friendly deal, which will be a lot less than $11 million. So in the way I look at it, it's a wash. Hey, you give Tavares less money, you give that extra money to Mitch Marner. People are going to argue what he's worth. That's not what this video is about. But the biggest thing is you have a lot of this core locked up. Matthew Knies needs to come back. That's a big one, in my opinion. Matthews is signed. Morgan Riley's contract is there as well. There's a lot of these guys on the lineup, and it looks like this is the future team for maybe the next 2 years, 3 years, depending on how they do in the playoffs. I mean, I think a lot relies on that at this point, and how deep of a run they can go. Maybe we see a lot of moving pieces, but the biggest thing is Scott Laughton will be on this team as a third line center. And listen, they could have went out and picked up other guys. There's a lot of people. Mikko Rantanen was just traded. You could have acquired him, but it would have costed so much more, and it was a rental, it seemed like, in every aspect. So I like the team control player in Laughton. Yes, we have to worry about the contracts, but I think the biggest thing, and what a lot of Leafs fans are feeling, we need to focus on this playoffs, and with a deep team, a good coach, and a system that seems to be working. They've lost one, should have lost to the Sharks,
Yeah.
this year. But I mean, I think this is a team that can run for it. And listen, everyone says that every year, but they're putting the perfect pieces in on the team, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it looks great. You traded a future first round pick for the now. And honestly, that's absolutely worth it. You see some playoff success this year, you're going to forget that first round pick was even sent away in the Scott Laughton deal. All in all, a really good deal for the Toronto Maple Leafs, but maybe you would disagree. If you agree, disagree, let us know your thoughts down below in the comments section, because that'll do it for this episode of Hat Trick HQ. But if you enjoyed, we're going to have videos on all the trades, all the stuff heading into the playoffs on this channel. So if you want to stay up to date on everything, hit the free subscribe button. You won't regret it. I promise. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host, Mark Pye. We'll catch you in the next one.